Hello friends, welcome back to another episode of r/IDOWorkHereLady, where people are mistaken for regular Joe Schmoes when they actually work at places. This episode is a special one. This story was emailed to me from one of my subscribers, saying he was reminded of a story when I brought up that I used to work at Quiznos making sandwiches, like 10 years ago. I hope you guys stay for the story today and subscribe for future videos, and it's a really good story. This story's titled, Karen Makes Fun of Me for Working at a Sandwich Shop. I own the store, and many others. So I own a chain of well-known sandwich shops across town, and have been successfully running them for many years now. When I first got into the business and had only one store, I used to work at the front counter making the sandwiches, which are made to order, and then ringing up the till. Over time, I was able to build up a great team of employees and let them do all the front-end work, and slowly expanded my stores. I'm pushing 60 this year, and now have the luxury of doing some spot checks here and there, and I visit the stores mostly to pick up any paperwork and to check up on the managers. I've encountered my share of colorful personalities over the decades, from employees to customers. This is a tale of the time I had the delightful pleasure of interacting with a hellish beast and her devil spawns. It was a regular afternoon, and my locations usually got pretty busy around lunch with a flood of kids and adults coming in on their breaks. One day, when I was at this one location picking up some paperwork, one of the employees got a family emergency. Her dad got into a bad car accident and needed to leave. Since I was in the shop anyways, I sent her home and decided to cover the rest of her shift, leaving me with the store manager. It had been many years since I worked up front, and I was getting excited to get back into it. Since there were no extra large shirts, I just popped on the franchise hat and was making sandwiches in a white t-shirt and jeans. It was nearing the lunch rush, and we have a lineup of customers. Myself and the store manager have a pretty good assembly line going, when in walks a woman, a Karen, from what my nephew says you call this type of broad, with her two young kids, both maybe around 5 to 6 years old. From the moment she entered, this Karen was loudly and obnoxiously talking on her phone, something about how this girl at work had her face so far up the boss's ass that she had shit all over her nose. I'm not sure if Karen had a hearing problem or a filter problem, because soon she was complaining about the line and the wait and how she's in a rush, and everyone in the shop could hear her. To top it all off, her children were running around the shop, climbing on chairs and tables and knocking on the window and getting their nasty snotty faces all over the glass. This event happened a few years ago, therefore my memory of the exact dialogue is vague, so please forgive me for any inaccuracies. She finally gets up to the counter, and I do my usual greeting. Good afternoon, what can I get you? Karen holds a finger up in the air at me so she can take an extra minute to tell her friend on the phone that she's about to order. I wait until she decides to acknowledge me, and I greet her again and said, what can I get for you? Italian cuts on toasted whole wheat bread with tomato, lettuce, onion, mayo, mustard, cheddar cheese. Karen spoke fast and immediately went back on her phone call. Unfortunately, I couldn't hear her order due to the crazy little kid screaming in the background. I had to ask her to clarify. Sorry, what kind of bread? She held up the finger at me again to wait, put her phone call on hold, and repeated her robotic order. Italian cuts on toasted whole wheat bread with tomato, lettuce, onion, mayo, mustard, cheddar cheese. I was able to catch the whole wheat bread this time and began putting her sandwich together. I did have to ask her to clarify again the things she wanted on the order. Instead of answering me specifically for what items she wanted, she would repeat her super speed order, exasperatingly. Note, I'm not as spry as I used to be, and my hearing probably has gone down a little over the years, but it really doesn't help when you talk like an auctioneer and have your little monsters screeching like psycho cats fighting pterodactyls in the background. That ear-piercing hullabaloo alone is enough to incapacitate and disrupt any sense of thought and clarity. I'm doing my best to get this order together so this lady and her living sirens can get out. Once or twice, she calls after them in a lazy sing-songy voice. Tristan, Emily, quiet down. She doesn't even try to control them. There's a good chance these kids are gonna grow up wild and out of control, but not my kids, not my problem. As I'm about to put the veggies on the sandwich, Karen squawks at me and says, wait a minute, is that toasted? I said, yes it is. Her mouth fell open, jaw to the ground, and said, I said not toasted. I replied, oh, did you? I apologize, I must have misheard you. I can remake your sandwich. I'm a little flustered because in her insane order that she made the 5 times, I swear I heard on toasted, but she must have said not toasted. I turned to put the sandwich I started to make on the back counter to deal with later when I heard her mutter into her Bluetooth, "Fucking idiot made my sandwich wrong." I freeze, glance over to her and ask, "I beg your pardon?" At this point, you could hear the place quiet. All customers were watching this ordeal intently. Her children, of course, are still screaming. Karen looks me up and down, maybe trying to set me on fire with her thoughts. I said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry I made your order incorrectly, but there's no need to be name-calling." The woman then blew up and transformed into a banshee and said, "What are you, my mother? If you made my sandwich right the first time, we wouldn't be here now, would we?" I said not toasted. Not toasted. Is that so difficult for you to comprehend? It means don't put it in the oven. Maybe if you weren't such a loser, you wouldn't be 100 years old and working at such a shitty job and going nowhere in life. Shocked, I was speechless at her whirlwind of insults as she continued and said, "Hello? Do you even understand English? Make my sandwich, don't just stand there. I can't believe how awful you're treating me. I'm never gonna come to the shop again. You're just an idiot who can't even put together a decent sandwich, and I'm gonna make sure you're fired. Who's the manager? I'm gonna complain about you." I then smiled, having realized that I now had the power to ban her. I put on my best customer service voice and said, "That won't be necessary actually. Ma'am, I own this store and several others across the city. Please take your screaming children and leave. You are no longer welcome at this location or any of my other 5 locations." I'll never forget the look of disgust on her face as she raised her voice and said, "You? The owner? No way." Her kids started crying, probably from their mother flipping her lid. Karen turned to my other employee, a young lady in her late 20s, and shrilled, "Are you the manager?" The young lady nods and says, "Yes, I am." Karen shrieks and says, "Are you gonna let him talk to me like that? You need to reprimand him right now. Who's your boss?" The other employee points to me and says meekly, "He is." Karen's face scrunches up like she just smelled something rotten and sharply looks at me. I smile and wave at her while she squeals, "You? There's no way. I want to talk to the owner." My employee responds again, "No, he is the owner." Karen threw her hands in the air, her face turning the shade of a tomato, and said, "What kind of place is this? Do only bags of shit work here and they can't even get a sandwich right?" Calmly, I asked her again to leave and said, "Ma'am, I'm kindly asking you and your extremely disruptive children to leave this establishment and never return, as you are no longer welcome, nor do we ever wish to serve you with your bad attitude, poor personality, or your horrible hair." Karen let out what I could only describe as a discernible shriek and stomped out of the shop without even waiting for her 2 kids, who stumbled behind her sobbing, "Mommy, wait!" Never have I ever felt such satisfaction with kicking out such a rude and horrible person. I felt sorry for her, and I felt sorry for the kids. Lady, if you weren't such a piece of shit, maybe you'd have a happier life and learn to love your kids a little more, instead of taking it out on people trying to make you lunch. This story brings me back to the sandwich making days at Quiznos. And thank you, this lovely subscriber who emailed me this story because he didn't have Reddit. And yeah, you reminded me about this horrendous job that I used to have. And you sent me I bet you own a bunch of Subways. You own a bunch of Subways. I hope you enjoyed this one story today. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button and leave a comment. If you aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories. I try my best to upload every single day, even though I'm super busy doing absolutely nothing. If you guys have some time, I'm about to throw a story time at you. So basically I had this one encounter with a lady when I used to work at Quiznos. It was like a nightmare job. It was this one lady who ordered a sandwich and we made it for her and she took it home. And an hour later, she called the store saying that we messed up her sandwich, it was burnt, and she wanted us to deliver her a new one. I told my aunt to just leave it, and she was just one customer that was never going to come back, blah, blah, blah. And we're not missing out on $10 every month. But my aunt, who was really dedicated to customer service, offered me to deliver a new sandwich to her. So we basically made a brand new sandwich, gave her a soup and a bag of chips or whatever, because my aunt really wanted her to come back, even though she was a piece of shit. And I had to drive across the city to her house to deliver a brand new sandwich to her that she complained was burnt. So I went up to the door, rang the doorbell, gave her the sandwich, and was like, do you still have the old one so I can like take a look at it? And she said, no, I ate it. She ate the freaking sandwich. And then she had the audacity to call in and said that we made her sandwich wrong and that she wanted a new one. She basically got a free sandwich because there was no proof. The sandwich could have been perfect. But anyways, that's my story about Quiznos. Thank you for listening to it if you guys stayed to listen to it.